The fourth question will start with Memo Morantes answering it. With the dissolution of the redevelopment agencies, how should the county take responsibility for housing programs that are no longer funded by cities?
That could be a lot of million-dollar question here, but I believe we're already moving forward with relying on some of our nonprofit agencies, in which we have a lot of very proactive nonprofits, from HIP Housing, the HEART consortium that we have, and I believe that we will be able to, again, utilize those dollars in a smarter way. Education will gain some dollars back, as you know, because the Redevelopment Agency was holding some of the monies for education. So I think this county works quite well together to be able to deal with the way we were funding these redevelopment agencies, and it's going to be painful, but I think on the long haul we will all benefit from it, including education, and education is very dear to my heart, being on the board for 12 years.
Carlos Romero.
So just so you all know, professionally, I'm an economic development and affordable housing professional with about 24 years of experience in the area. Let me actually answer the question by saying the county should not be responsible for housing. It should be a local issue. There are very few cities in this county that have renounced their rights and their obligations to deal with affordable housing. Yes, Menlo Park is one, but most of the cities have not. They've decided to be successor housing agencies. And why? Because housing needs can be met locally. Now, what do I think the county should do? What the county should do with the potential $25 to $35 million it may be getting back from the redevelopment agencies. And I say this here today, and I'm going to the Board of Supervisors with other city council folks to push this. We should create in this county an economic development / housing bank, hopefully using HEART, right, which is our housing trust fund, in which we deposit that money that is coming back to the county from the cities that actually have redevelopment dollars that are being swept back into the county, and the county should not use them in its general fund. On the contrary, it creates an economic development bank, and then it also funds at a minimum 20% of that money into an affordable housing pot in HEART that other cities can use to leverage local dollars as well as their dollars to generate housing. We cannot abdicate our responsibility to house our residents.
Kirsten Keith.
Thank you. Housing is a huge issue, and as you all know, there were 13 redevelopment agencies across the county that were eliminated on February 1st of this year. And now we all have to figure out how to create housing, and I have a couple of ideas. I think really one of the biggest ideas that we should be looking at are housing tax credits. And one of our larger companies in this area, Google, is already doing this. And this is a great way to leverage dollars to create housing. And it's just not something that's been done a lot lately, but I think that it will catch on now that the redevelopment agencies are gone. We do have many nonprofits such as HEART, the Housing Endowment and Regional Trust, and that's an agency that the cities in the county, the 20 cities, can decide to join. And if they decide to join, then they get benefits from being in this organization. Over the past few years, a few cities have opted not to remain in it. It costs a fee, but I think that since we've lost the redevelopment agency, that we'll be looking more towards HEART for some solutions. I've also had the opportunity to work with HIP Housing lately with Kate Comfort Har, and we met over on Willow Road. There's a 12-unit vacant apartment building that we could turn into low-income housing, and it's something that we're discussing on the council. But I think at the county level, we also need to look at the North Fair Oaks area. The county just finished and completed and approved a specific plan for that area with up to 60 units per acre. So there's dense housing along the rail corridor, and that's another area where we can create housing.
Thank you. Andy Cohen.
SB 1220 promises to replace some of the $1 billion a year that were available through redevelopment to provide housing. That money is no longer with us. Whether SB 1220 will deliver remains to be seen. Tax credits are a great idea. Unfortunately, the city of Menlo Park and the County of San Mateo, neither one of them has the power to make those things happen. Nonprofits cannot make tax credits happen. We can all work together to make some of these changes take place. One way to do that is to look at what I call life cycle housing, where at a local level, people begin to accept the notion that they can do something as individuals to improve high-density housing, infill housing around transit and urban centers. That is the solution, not only corporate investment and multiple dwelling units. Thank you.
Shelly Masur.
Could you just read the question one more
Yeah.
time? I want to make sure I'm answering it.
What plan, oh, excuse me, let me get this one.
Sorry.
Well,
That's all right. I can just talk about housing. That's fine.
that's the one. Yeah. With the dissolution of the redevelopment agencies, how should the county take responsibility for housing programs that are no longer funded by cities?
Great, thank you. So, I have to say that in Redwood City, I just want to point out that actually for our redevelopment agency, we did have an agreement for our schools, and the loss of the redevelopment agency is a loss to our schools as well. That being said, I do agree that the county is responsible for housing in the unincorporated areas, but really I see the county as a leader in bringing people together to continue to work with heart. I think the Housing Trust Fund that Carlos has suggested is a great approach to try and ensure that there are some sustainable dollars to bring low-income housing into our county, or continue to bring low-income housing into our county. I think also something that nobody's talked about is working with developers to incentivize them to include low-income housing in their developments, something that has been done a little bit in Redwood City. And then in the interim, one of the things that HIP Housing does is work on things like housing shares, where people who can't afford their own housing are able to share homes with people who have some space. And I think that's not a solution, but it is a bit of a bridge.
Warren Slocum.
Thank you. I agree with a lot of what's been said. However, I would just caution us to remember that in the last 3 or so years, the county has spent some $243 million in its reserve accounts, some of that to balance the budget and some of that to buy 2 buildings in San Carlos and also to purchase the site for the replacement jail. $243 million out of reserves in 3 years. So I say that because, yes, the county has a responsibility to do affordable housing in the unincorporated area, but I think at some point you need to step back and say that the county is not immune from being responsible or being prudent with its money. And we just can't continue to spend money we don't have. But having said that, with 30 seconds to go, I would say that probably the best hope for the future is to put together a regional collaborative group that would include companies like Google and Facebook and Electronic Arts and so forth and so on, along with nonprofits and government, and come out with some sort of plan that is based on sustainability and not just wishful thinking about affordable housing. Thank you.
Ernesto Schmidt.
Thank you. As one of the planning committees, vice chair of the planning commission in Redwood City, this is a huge topic for us that we're going on right now, and we have actually gone to conferences and study sessions in regards to this, and I tell you now that there is no answer to it. You go out and you talk to these professionals and people are asking, people are talking about what we're going to do now that the redevelopment agencies are gone, and we're hoping to go there and we're hoping to hear an answer. and there really is no answer. So, you know, this is, if we don't nip this in the bud right now, it is going to be a crisis. And, you know, talking and just listening to Shelly in regards to working with developers, I think that's going to be the biggest thing. You know, if developers are going to be coming into our cities and build, you know, I'm a huge proponent of getting out there, even if they're not required to build affordable housing, to find a way to get them to build affordable housing. It's only fair. If we continue to build market rate housing, we're going to be so out of balance. It's going to be crazy. I do agree with Mr. Morantes as well that we do need to take a proactive approach and partnering up with HART and HIP as well. I mean, anything that we can do, and also working in regards to cities as a collective to get this stuff done, is going to be crucial. But it is a problem.